What to do if your retirement plan is failing. All right, so I just got done reading this blog post or an article from off the Kitz's blog, Nerd's Eye View, by my man Derek Tharp, who is a professor over at the University of Southern Maine, who I'm friends with on Facebook, friends, you know what I'm saying, but, and he had posted this just a couple days ago on the Kitz's blog. He's actually writing another blog on the guardrail approach that I want to see about getting him on interview on my channel, because I'm very interested in what he has to say, and I'm a big fan of Derek. Actually, the fact that he teaches at USM makes him near and dear to my heart, because that's where my mom graduated from. My mom had a degree in accounting from she went to night school at the University of Southern Maine while she was raising three little crumb crunchers, me, my little brother Ben, and my little sister Abby, and single mom, and working full-time at Porches Department Store there on Congress Street, and have to take the boat to go into school, take the boat, come home. And that's why my mom crushes. So God bless you, Mom. Anyway, so there's a very interesting article about guardrails, which I want to it kind of gave me the impetus to do what I'm going to do here. So what I've done here is I've taken 10 years, all right, 10 years of a retirement plan for me. I just used me for an example, all right. And what I do, I've put $1 million into a moderate portfolio, a 60-40 portfolio. That's a 5.3% standard expected rate of return with a 10.3% standard deviation. For simplicity, we're just going to say that's 5 and 3. So what that means is 3 standard deviations, we times that by 3, means it's plus or minus 30. So 3 times 10, even I can figure this out. And I'm just a caveman. I don't get your ways. I drive my BMW. So we take our standard deviation, 3 standard deviations means within 99.8% of our probability, we should fall with that bell curve of 99.8% of the probability. And again, we're just predicting the future. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it's what we got. It works because we don't know the future. So in any given year, our portfolio could be down 25% with a 99.8% probability, and it could be up 35% with a 99.8% probability. And ironically, that's exactly what happened in 2008. A moderate portfolio, 60-40, was down in fact, the Wellington was down 28% in 2008, which is beyond our probabilities. That shows you how black swan 2008 was. But anyway, this number is baked into our probability of success. I just want to show that to you because a lot of people, they go, this number is baked in. The drawback about Monte Carlo, they're completely random. They're random from the previous year. They don't have any knowledge or a memory of what happened the previous year. That's what makes Monte Carlo somewhat, not negative, but it's challenging because if you look at investments, there is things called trends and momentum. What happened last year, a lot of times is remembered the following year by investors because investors are human beings. Anyway, so I'm 65 years old. I'm spending 4% of my portfolio each and every year. That's not 4%. Well, it is when you factor in taxes because I got everything in an IRA. All right, so we're using 4% plus taxes. This is our discretionary expenditures. You can't, your taxes are not discretionary in case you didn't know. So we're taking 4% and we're adjusting it with a 3% inflation. So every year our expenditures are going to go up with a 3% inflation. All right, so I'm 65 years old. I'm going to live until I'm 90. Lastly, when I'm 75 years old, we don't have it on here, but when I'm 75 years old, my discretionary expenses will drop by 10% because that's what people do. When they get older, they start spending less. You see what I'm saying? So all this is baked into the software. Well, the software, I use Right Capital for this, but I'm putting up here. So just remember that when I'm 75 years old, I'm adjusting my spending down by 10%. All right. So in this case, we got $1 million in a 60-40 portfolio. We're taking basically 40,000 a year out. Our probability of success is 84%, and that just means 84% of the time we died with money left over, with our portfolio intact. Could be $1, could be $10 million, but we still had some positive number in there. 16% of the time we died with nothing, which would, instead of saying that means you ran out of money, no, that means you're going to have to adjust your cash flow at some point, which we'll get into here in just a second. That's still pretty good. For me, the sweet spot is 85%. So we're like, all right, 16% of the time we might need to adjust cash flow. 84% of the time we don't. And we're inflating our expenditures every year until we're 75. We hit 75, it drops by 10%, and then we inflate it again every year until inflation is 3% in here. Until we hit 85, we hit 85, it drops by 10%, and then we inflate it again. All very realistic numbers, by the way. So the next year, the portfolio fell by 6%. So not only did we take $40,000 out, but we fell by 6%. So now we only have $900,000 left. All right. And so instead of a 4% distribution amount, I think that's 30. I think that's a 5. What is that? 30. That's going to be about 41 on $900,000 divided by 900. That's a 4.6% distribution amount. All right. So much higher than the 4%. And so 37,000 adjusted with 3% inflation, we're spending 38,192. So now our probability of success is down to 74%. So it went from 84 to 74. We're no longer in the sweet spot. Now notice we've got a year older, which meant we have one less year we have to provide an income for because, I hate to say it, but the older you get, the less your longevity is. Shocking, huh? The more years you age, the less years you have to provide income for because you're going to die sooner. Now the following year we went down about another 5%. All right, so we went down 6, 5, and we got a year older, 1 year closer to death. And again, we're adjusting for inflation. So that's about 42% now. So we're taking about 42%. 42,000 divided by 800. That's about a 5.3% distribution amount. And as you can see, our portfolio probability of success went down to 60. Now you're freaking out. You're like, oh, Josh. I'm like, dude, remember, this has been baked into that probability of success. A 25% decline. Is that likely to happen? No. Could it? Sure. Is it likely to happen after 2 consecutive down years in a moderate portfolio? I would say highly improbable. Show me any time in histoire, that's why I like to use histoire because I'm French, that a moderate portfolio of 60-40 has had 3 consecutive down years. Well, Josh, in 2000, 2001, and 2, the market was down. Yeah, the stock market. S&P 500 was down 9, 12, 22% respectively in 2000, 2001, and 2. You know what was not down that? Oh, a moderate portfolio of stocks and bonds. Josh, the Great Depression, that was the stock market. During deflation and depression, what does well during those times? Bonds! Bonds do well during those times. Shocking. So, no, not in the Great Depression either. In fact, the interesting thing why I don't ever expect a market with a 60-40 portfolio to get crushed like that for 3 consecutive years, because what crushes bonds? What crushes bonds? It's the interest rates going up, a la 2022. So if interest rates go up in 2022, what's the likelihood they go up again in 2023? Well, it could happen. But what happens to your yield? Remember, the way you adjust for it, or the way you can kind of predict your returns on bonds is a current yield. As the yields go up because the interest rates have gone up and the price of the bonds has gone down, you'd want to adjust your bond portfolio in terms of your expected rate of return. Remember, before 2022, I was only giving you about 2% rate of return on bonds. Now I'm giving you 4% because the yields are high. I'm telling you, there's like a 95% correlation between current yield and 10-year return on bonds. It's just that simple. So if the bonds are getting smoked for 1 year or 2 years consecutively, the likelihood of bonds getting smoked for a 3rd consecutive year is just not there, man. It's just not there. Because the reason bonds get smoked is because interest rates go up. Not likely to happen. In fact, I'd say highly improbable. But we're still putting it in here as if it's probable. Because the drawback about Monte Carlo is completely random. It has no memory of what happened last year. None. And yet individual investors in the aggregate are what determines the market. It's not some random software. It's you and I with our emotions intact and our confidence and our cockiness and all that stuff. That's one drawback about Monte Carlo. But here we're at 60%. And we're like, oh! And then the next year we're up, 8% or something like that. Let's say we're up 8%. So we're taking 42,000 out. The next year we're up 8%. We got a year older. Our probability of success is back up to 74. We're like, all right, good. Next year we're flat. Well, we made some money because we made enough to take our distributions out. So we made 5% or something like that in rate of return. Seems reasonable to me. And we're saying, all right, we got 5% rate of return. Nothing really has changed. Our portfolio is flat year to year. Our amount we're spending has gone up with inflation. But we've actually improved our success rate because we're 1 year older. We're getting another year closer to death. St. Peter, don't you call me because I can't go. Wait, another year older and deeper in debt. Yeah, I guess, does it say closer to death? No, it says Tennessee Williams. St. Peter, don't you call me because I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Some people say, you're too dramatic, Josh. Yeah, it's fun. I like doing this. All right, so the following year, we actually made some money. We went from $900,000 plus taking our $45,000 out So we made some positive, not huge gains, but we made some gains. We added 25,000 more to our portfolio on top of the amount we took out. And we're adjusting it to inflation, remember, at 3% a year. So now we're at 82% probability. We're getting close to the sweet spot. But then we're down. We got smoked here. So we're down. We're down $75,000 in our total portfolio. But we did take some money out. But either way, we're down. And you're like, now our expenditures have gone up again with inflation. Now we're at 45,000 plus taxes. We'll just say about 49,000 here. And now you're like, dude, 49,000 on 850, 49 divided by 850 is a 5.8% distribution. And our probability of success is 74%. And you're like, I can't go through this again. I was very, very nervous when I was 67. I can't go through this again. And so what you do is you say, I'm going to reduce my spending by $3,000. Yeah, what's that? About $3,500. Remember, you still got to pay taxes from this. You're going to say, I'm going to reduce my spending by $3,500. So $3,500 on 45,000, you're going to reduce your spending by 8%. That's all you're doing. You got a year older. The market fell again. It fell again to $800,000. So we went from $925 to $800. That's $125,000 down. Now you did have $90,000 that you took out, but still, that is what we're looking at, $800,000. But because you reduced your spending by 7.8%, your rate of success now is back up to 85, which is the highest it's ever been. Even though we're $200,000 lower than we were 10 years ago, even though right here we were at $80,000 here as well, $800,000. But because we're, what's that, 5 years older, even though we're at $80,000 and we're spending more money, we're still spending $42,000, which is more than we're spending here. But because we're that much closer to death, our probability of success is much higher. Remember, the last time we were at $800,000, we were spending roughly $42,000 a year from the portfolio. But because we had more room to cover us from 67 until 90, I got date of death 90 years old, had another 23 years left. Now we got only another 18 years left. So even though we have the same amount of money, even though we're still spending, we're spending much more than we did, even though we've reduced the spending, now we're back up to 85. So now I'm like, look, man, you're back up to 85 and you're, 5 years further into your retirement. 7 years further into your retirement. I'm going to give you an increase. I'm going to say, let's spend more. We're going to give you a $47,000, a $5,000 increase, more than a 10% increase to make back from what you lost before. Now we got $800,000, so we gave ourselves an increase. So we made some money, but not much. We made 6% or something like that. We'll take it. Back, we're still at $8,000, but I'm giving you a big increase, and now we're at 78%. But again, you're 73 years old now. You're only 17 years away from retiring, from dying, I should say, if you're lucky. Following year, we get down to $725,000 again. So you can see 1 down year, 2 down years, 3 down years, 4 down years. We had 4 down years of the 10. 4. What's the likelihood of that happening? Not very high. Show me again when that's happened for a moderate portfolio. 40% decline on any given decade. So now we're saying we're going to keep that at, because we're not back to the sweet spot 85%. So we're going to hold steady at $47,000, which is where you would have been if we inflated this at 3% anyway. That's where you would have been anyhow. You would have been at $47,000. So we're just right back where we should have been. We're going to hold it steady there. And here, even though the portfolio is down to 725, you're still at 74%. Again, not great, but now what's going to happen is we're going to start spending a little bit less anyway. So we're going to reduce our spending by 10% by $4,700 because we're getting older, as everyone does. So how do you do with this? Well, you just run the Monte Carlo each and every year. And if the Monte Carlo says, hey man, things are looking dicey, a la here, this guy didn't even make any spending adjustments, and he still is at 85% a couple years later, 82% here. If the Monte Carlo says, hey man, we got to adjust the spending, we adjust the spending. And when you adjust the spending, in my opinion, when you get it right here. But we didn't even do it there. That's what a Monte Carlo says. It doesn't say this is it forever. I was talking to these guys yesterday. A G&F will call them out of California. And last year they're 81, now they're 88, you know what I'm saying? And I said, look, it could be anything the year. We don't know. But as we sit here today with these probabilities, and again, these probabilities are completely random. So this right here, again, after going from 850 to 725, this is still baked into that you could be down 25%. Still baked into the probability. The issue isn't that we're going to crash our plane and all die. The Malaysian Airlines, with CNN reporting on it for, I guess, years on end, who knows. The issue is, well, you just adjust your spending a little bit. Oh, by the way, even with this, a linear 5.3% rate of return. This is the difference between linear and probability, and Monte Carlo was non-linear. Is we had $395,000 left, even with a linear. So if he just got 5.3% a year, each and every year, spending basically 4% a year adjusted with inflation each and every year, we're still leaving $400,000 at death on a portfolio that started with $1 million. What is giving us right now 5%? Anyone want to take a guess? Is there anything out there that's giving us 5% with no downside risk, with no negative 25% risk? Remember, I'm giving you 5.3 with a downside risk of 25%. Is there anything giving us 5% right now with no downside? I'll just throw it out there. Let you think about that. All right. Love your thoughts. God bless. See ya.